Most people live their entire lives as a slightly dimmer version of themselves. Not because they're lazy, not because they're stupid, but because they made a series of small, comfortable choices, and those choices compounded over the years and built a ceiling that they can no longer see. This isn't a motivational video, and I'm not going to tell you to wake up at 5 a.m. or write your goals down or believe in yourself harder. I'm going to tell you the things that I experienced and the things that I had to change in order to identify my true self. The comfort trap. Here is the first thing that nobody wants to say out loud, which is that comfort is not your friend. We're wired to seek comfort because it's biological. Your nervous system treats discomfort as danger, and it floods you with resistance the moment you try anything that is new, unfamiliar, or uncertain. But here is the problem. The version of you that is capable of more, that version only exists on the other side of repeated discomfort. And here is a fascinating phenomenon about the brain, that it cannot distinguish between dangerous discomfort and necessary discomfort. Whenever it senses danger, it just wants to stop. And most people listen, not once, not twice, every single time. And slowly, the life they could have lived shrinks down to the size of the life that they were willing to tolerate. You see, comfort doesn't kill you dramatically. It just quietly removes all the edges from your existence until there is nothing left to push against. And the question isn't whether you're comfortable right now. The question is, does your comfort have a cost? And are you paying it without knowing? The distraction machine. The second thing is harder to admit because it requires you to look at something you love. We're living inside the most sophisticated distraction apparatus in human history, and there is no doubt about it. Not because anyone sat down and decided to destroy the human potential, though some of the incentives point that way, but because attention is the new currency, and the entire digital economy is dedicated into harvesting yours. Every notification, every scroll, every recommended video engineered, not metaphorically, literally engineered to interrupt the formation of deep thought. And here is what deep thought actually requires: boredom and silence. Uninterrupted time where nothing is happening and your mind is left alone to wrestle with something. That is where real thinking lives. That's where you figure out what you actually want, what you actually believe, and what you're actually afraid of. I want you to be honest and ask yourself, when was the last time that you were genuinely bored? Not tired, not entertained, not consuming, just bored with yourself and with your own thoughts. And honestly, most people cannot tolerate it for more than 60 seconds before reaching for a screen. And in that 60 seconds, that's where self-awareness lives. That's where the uncomfortable question that you have been avoiding finally surfaces. That's where you hear your own voice instead of everyone else's. You see, distraction isn't just wasted time. Distraction is the active suppression of self-knowledge. And a person who doesn't know themselves cannot become themselves. Borrowed identity. This is the one that cuts the deepest. Most people don't know who they are. They know who they were told to be, but they don't know who they are. They know who gets approval in their environment. They know which version of themselves make other people happy. They know which version of themselves make others comfortable, but they have never sat down, really sat down and asked, what do I actually think? And what would I do if no one was watching and nothing was at stake? You see, we absorb identities the way we absorb accents, unconsciously, from the people around us, from what we were awarded for as children, and from the culture that we swim in. And then we defend those identities like they are us. But they're not you. They're a negotiated settlement between who you might have been and what was acceptable. And here is the cruel part. The people who never examine that, who go from childhood conditioning straight into adult routines without ever stopping to interrogate any of it, those people will spend their whole lives protecting a self that isn't even theirs. They'll make career decisions based on it, relationship choices, and they'll turn down the opportunities that do not reflect the character that they're playing. They will feel vague, chronic dissatisfaction and not know why. Because they've never stood outside of themselves to see the gap between who they are and who they could be. And so the enemy isn't out there, it's the unchecked story that you're telling about yourself. It's the truth. Now you might be thinking, how do I solve this? What do I do now? And let me tell you that there is no trick, there is no system, and there is no morning routine that's going to fix this. What this requires is something much simpler and much harder, which is brutal honesty. Honesty about the gap between where you are and where you know you could be. The people who actually become who they are capable of being, and they exist. You have seen them. They're not more talented than you, they're not luckier, and they are not working with information that you don't have access to. What they have is a higher tolerance for the truth about themselves. They look at the uncomfortable thing directly. They don't soften it. They don't schedule it for later. They sit with what's real and they let it change them. That's it. That's the whole thing. You already know what you're avoiding, and you already know where you are being dishonest to yourself. The question is whether you're going to keep finding sophisticated ways to not deal with it, or whether today is the day that you decide that the uncomfortable version of your life is more honest than the comfortable one. And truthfully, most people never become who they're capable of being, not because it was impossible, because it was inconvenient. And inconvenient felt close enough to impossible that they stopped asking the question. Don't stop asking the question, and always remember, you are being watched.